Hello, everyone. Welcome into CUTV and CUTV Sports One once again for another edition of Forechecking. I know we said we'd be back in about 2 weeks' time, but here we are. The next week, we're back on another show here. So this will be our next show, and then in 2 weeks' time, we'll have another one now because we're reintroducing our pick'ems today. We'll get to that a little bit later, but here we are again. Welcome back. I'm TK as always. Scotty P is back joining us again today. Doug is back joining us as well. And we have Peyton and Nolan alongside us. Johnny is missing today. He's out doing some work. Shout out to Johnny at Lids in Washington. If you're out in Washington today, go out and check him out and buy a hat. Anyway, we're here. We're going to go through some hockey with you guys. We've had a little wild weekend where the NHL decided that they can't play hockey when there's sun on the ice at Lake Tahoe. We'll get into that and more. So let's start off with the week recap. Whoever wants to start, go off with whatever you want to talk about for this past week.
All right, I'm going to start off real quick. Also, if you are going to go to Lids and buy a hat from Johnny, go buy the Pittsburgh Steelers Salute to Service hat. I know he loves pushing those. Just go buy it. Also, once again, shout out Lids. And big thing is, shout out to the NHL for actually putting a game on Lake Tahoe. That looked so much better than the typical outdoor games that we've had over the past God knows how many years. I feel like we were almost 15 years deep into this of doing these outdoor games. Been a while since Sid scored that outdoor goal in the shootout against the Sabres. We're getting older now. That kind of kills me inside, but that it looked very authentic and it looked really, really good. I'd much rather them do that. The only issue is how are you going to do it and have fans? But to an extent, part of me thinks there shouldn't even be fans in the first place at these outdoor events like that, because I've done outdoor games before. I did the last outdoor game in Pittsburgh when they played the Flyers at Heinz Field. It's brutal. I don't get how anybody would want to sit through that. And it's one of those things where, if you can put it in a unique place like Lake Tahoe or put it up somewhere like, Ontario, where, you're celebrating hockey's heritage, but you also have a really, really sick backdrop. It sucks that the weather didn't really comply and they had to go into a sunlight delay, but that happens with every Winter Classic and every outdoor game. It's impossible to keep the ice perfect or the way that you want it to, because you can't combat nature. But I thought it was really good.
All right. Who else would like to talk about the last week?
I'll go in as far as the just the outdoor games are concerned. I thought that the Lake Tahoe games were absolutely amazing. Like Doug said, just seeing the backdrop of the lake and the sunlight and the sunset, I guess, how majestic it all looked. While there was a hockey game being played, it really made it look amazing. It almost makes the stadium games look obsolete in a way, I guess, because we always talk about, the cliche they throw around with the outdoor games is always, they're taking it back to the roots of the game. It kind of is, but not exactly. There aren't fans showing up to you and your buddies just playing out on the pond. And I think that's what the Lake Tahoe games really represented, was just, hey, it's just all of us playing hockey. No one's around, no fans, no nothing. It's just us playing. And I feel like that's a better way of doing it as opposed to the stadium series. Now, will the NHL continue to do that? Most likely no, because obviously, once this pandemic is over there and we have fans back at games again, obviously the NHL is going to start finding every excuse they can to make money off of seating revenue and such. But as far as the moment itself, I thought that was an amazing job by the NHL. Obviously, you can't control the natural elements that will affect the game from time to time, but all in all, I thought it was a great effort put forward by the league, and two great games played as well between all those teams also.
Awesome. Nolan, Peyton, any of you guys, or who wants to go?
Yeah, I'll just go quick. I guess I'll switch it off the Lake Tahoe thing. And last time we talked, lots of games were getting postponed, due to COVID. And recently we've seen a lot more, teams being able to get their players back and such. So you can see that the NHL is really putting in an effort to making sure that these players are safe each and every week. And It's just something small, but I think, we're slowly seeing better competition now that teams are getting more players back and off that COVID list.
Absolutely. And Peyton, finish this out.
I'm just happy that the Panthers beat the Lightning. Whenever we did our last episode, I think I know I picked Florida, but I'm just happy that Florida won. That's about it with me. Nothing too much, but kind of like what Nolan said there, the league is really putting COVID as a huge priority, and they want the players to be safe so that there can be competition to watch. They can potentially make money off that, more money. So, I mean, they're doing what they got to do in this really weird situation, and I applaud it.
Awesome. Absolutely. And with that, we'll go ahead and move right into our standings for the week coming up. We'll start off with the Scotia North Division, and let's take a look at that real quick. Toronto up there at the number 1, still sitting there. They were sitting there for a while now and still hanging on. Edmonton at number 2, Winnipeg at the 3, Montreal and Calgary at 4 and 5, and finishing it out, Vancouver at 6 and Ottawa still at the 7. Everyone made their picks on what division they're going to talk about before we started the show. So Doug chose the North. We're going to send it over to you now, Doug. Give us your outline on the Scotia North Division.
This is probably my favorite division in hockey to watch right now. And this is something I hope that whenever the NHL does go back to some sense of normalcy, they just make an entire Canadian division. Because right now, as it stands, you have 6 extremely very talented teams and the Ottawa Senators. But, like you got to think of the star power that's on each of these teams. On Toronto, you have the Big Five. You have Morgan Riley, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares. And then you go to the Oilers where they have Draisaitl and McDavid. And, Pierre-Luc Dubois just went to Winnipeg. That's a big thing for them. Montreal's up and coming. They have a lot of really good young players. They have Ryan Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. They're doing really, really good things. And they're starting to get back to where they used to be 8 to 10 years ago, where they were a very solid playoff contender. And then Calgary and Vancouver are both very good as well. It's just, 2 teams are going to end up, 2 really good teams are going to end up missing the playoffs in this division. And it's going to be fairly difficult for those 2 teams who don't make I see between them and the Penguins whenever they first started getting good is what Marner and Matthews are doing right now reminds me a lot of what Crosby and Malkin did the year that when they went to the Cups in 08 and 09, where between the regular season and playoffs, they both had probably a combined between 130 and 140 points. As it sits right now, through 20 games, Marner and Matthews both have 30 points. They're well above a point per game. Austin Matthews is leading the league with 18 goals, and they're rolling. I think it's ironic that during Matthews' draft year, they were talking about how Patrick Laine was going to be the next Ovechkin and be that generational goal scorer. But really, the generational talent in terms of goal scoring is Matthews. Nobody has the quick release that he does and that quick clutch and grab type of shot. Nobody can keep up with that. And he's going to be an incredible player for many years. And the big thing that he has on all of his peers that most may not have with the offensive prowess that he has is the defensive skill. He's very good defensively. The Maple Leafs trust him to use him on the penalty kill from time to time. And, there's a lot of times where he does get consideration for the Selke Trophy, which is awarded the league's best defensive player. And, I know it's early and I know that we're giving the Maple Leafs a lot of time to crash and burn, but I would not be surprised that if they do get goaltending, if Frederik Andersen does pull it together, I would not be surprised to see this team make a deep playoff run and potentially go to the Stanley Cup final, because they have the talent, they have the depth scoring, they use the cap situation to their advantage by getting a lot of these super talented guys on very cheap deals. And we haven't even covered the fact that they have like 10 or 11 overly capable NHL defensemen. So they're probably best equipped to make a run right now. And that's pretty awesome to see. I think that it would be great for the game to have a Canadian team in the Cup final.
I like it for sure. That's the Scotia North Division there. Thank you, Doug, for that one. Moving on to our next one is the Discover Central Division. And let's look at this one here right now. This one will be Peyton's, I believe he picked this one. But let's go through the standings first. This one's been shaken up a lot since last week. Florida Panthers up into the number 1 spot in the Discover Central Division. Carolina sitting at number 2. Tampa Bay at number 3. Chicago at 4. Columbus and Dallas at the 5 and 6. Nashville at 7. And Detroit still hanging down there at the 8, as they have been for a little while now. So let's move ahead. Peyton, give us your outlook on this Central Division and how you think it's shaken out.
Well, first of all, Detroit just sucks. I mean, they have for a couple years now,
Way to be
and
blatant with it.
yeah, I mean, you can't like, you got to be honest and you got to be real with your situation. I got the standings right here, but they're 5-12-3. They only have 13 points. Like, this is just gonna be another one of those rebuild years. I wouldn't give up on them, though. They do have a lot of promising people. They have 2019 6th overall pick Mort Cedar, who is he's doing good for them, and he's definitely going to be panning out for them. I'm kind of surprised Dallas is where they're at. They're 6th in the Central right now for a team that made the Stanley Cup Finals last year and is now 6th. Doesn't look good, but I know they've had trouble with COVID, so maybe that's the excuse, but we'll never know. Columbus, it seems like they've gone down since trading Pierre-Luc Dubois, and they got Patrick Laine, which is kind of weird. But I've also heard problems of Laine maybe not fitting that scheme very well. And I think I might have said this last week, but I would not be surprised if there was a Laine trade before the end of this season, because Torts and Laine maybe don't connect too well. Now Roslovic does. I think there was a play where I think Roslovic, he did like a spinorama and he like passed it. It was beautiful. I don't know if you guys caught that, but it was an absolute beauty of a pass. Beautiful play. My Chicago Blackhawks are sitting at the 4th spot. Is it the top 2 teams in every division get in the playoffs, or is it top 4? Top 4. Okay, yeah. So my Blackhawks, they're in the playoffs right now. Patrick Kane still producing. I think he's in like the top 10 in points, if I just looked at that correctly. Tampa Bay still gunning. They won the cup last year. They're not letting off the gas pedal at all. They're sitting at 3rd right now. Carolina's 2nd. They're kicking. I think if they got better goaltending, they'll be good to go. They have a lot of promising pieces. They have Shmestikov, Aho, all those good people. And then we got the Florida Panthers somehow are at the 1st spot. If you would have looked at me like a couple years ago and said the Florida Panthers would be sitting at number 1, I wouldn't believe you at all. But, if you look at it, you got Huberdeau with 23 points. He's 7th in the league in points. And then, I think it's Barkov. Barkov is sitting at 14 right now with 19 points. So that's 2 very prominent players sitting in the top 15 in the league in points. And, not to mention they have like Vinny Hinostroza, Anthony Duclair, Owen Tippett. They have all these players that just can attack you from all angles. And, I mean, when you look at it, it's not really surprising that they're sitting at 1st, but I'm still a little shocked that they are, especially beating Tampa. So, it's an interesting division, but if Florida keeps it up, I think they got this in the bag.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're definitely due for a playoff spot at this point.
Most definitely. They've been out of the playoffs for a while, and they haven't had any successful runs. So, I think they need.
I am definitely supporting the Panthers. Fortunately, my favorite player from them that does not play for them anymore, but hey, it's all right. Doug knows what I'm talking about. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, let's move on to the next one is the Mass Mutual East Division. Scotty, this one is yours. Let's run through it real quick. Boston still holding that first place spot. Nolan Beisline's Washington Capitals running right behind there in second. A little switch up there around the 3 to 5 spots last night when I was making the graphics and realized they changed again. The Islanders up into the 3rd spot. Philadelphia sitting at the 4 and the Pittsburgh Penguins at 5. Rangers at 6, Devils 7, and the Sabres still not making things work down there at the 8. They are 1 point actually behind the Detroit Red Wings. So if you're looking at league standing, the Detroit Red Wings are actually better than the Buffalo Sabres. Let's throw this one over to Scotty and give me your outline here on this Mass Mutual East.
I mean, right now, to me, it seems like as far as playoffs are concerned, I know we still have a long ways to go until then, but for me, it seems like the top 3 teams are pretty much sealed up. I expect it to be a mix of Boston, Washington, and Philadelphia. Obviously, Boston still has the offensive power. David Pastrnak is back now, and he's in full force. As we were talking about the Lake Tahoe games earlier, he had a hat trick in that one. So, yeah, he was definitely handling business like he was supposed to. So, obviously, Boston's going to be around as they are expected to. Washington's doing their thing now. I feel like they're starting to get their legs underneath them because, obviously the depth scoring wasn't there at first. Now we're starting to see some other guys chip in. Even former Penguin Connor Sherry starting to light the lamp a little bit more. Philadelphia, as we mentioned before, they're going to keep doing their thing. They're getting better as time goes along. Those pieces from the little retool they had is starting to pay off for them. As far as that 4 spot is concerned, it's going to come down between the Penguins and the Islanders, and that's going to be a very heated battle, I would expect. Obviously, the Penguins we know the talent they have with Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, Letang, all those guys. It seems like Tristan Jarry's starting to finally get his game back to where it was. He had a terrible start to the year, but he seems to be figuring things out. Fingers crossed, Peyton, you're right. As far as the Islanders are concerned, again, we know how Barry Trotz's system works. We know how the players have bought into it, and they still have their guys like Barzell that's going to get the job done. The back end has been holding up for the most part. And as far as the other 3 teams, I mean, the New York Rangers are an absolute mess right now. When you look at what they did in the offseason, getting Alexi Lafreniere in the first round, that first overall pick, you're thinking, okay, now their retool might be done. Now they might be ready to contend for a spot. But as far as all that's concerned, things just haven't worked out. I don't think Lafreniere is ready for the NHL, in all honesty. I don't think he is. When you look, I mean, there are 2 goalies in the league right now, Hudobin and I forget the guy's name for Chicago, but they both have 2 assists on the year. They are tied with Alexi Lafreniere in points. That's how poorly he's been playing. Yeah, that's how poorly he's been playing since he came into the league. So I don't know if maybe he needs another year of junior. I don't know if he needs some more seasoning in the AHL. I don't know what he needs, but either way, he's not ready to play in the NHL right now. And that's very obvious. Tony DeAngelo, obviously we know how that whole situation unfolded. He turns out to be a locker room cancer, and the Rangers gave him shot after shot, and he just blew everyone. So no love there for Tony DeAngelo. They're trying to find a way to get him out, and unfortunately, it seems like nobody wants him. So you have $4 to $5 million in dead cap right there for the Rangers. That's not fun. The Devils are the Devils. I'm not expecting them to be any good. So that situation is what it is. Oh, going back to the Rangers, I completely forgot. Going back to the Rangers, Zibanejad went on like a 12-game scoreless drought there. He's not been putting up the numbers that he did last year. The one bright spot on their roster was Artemi Panarin. And then obviously the news comes out yesterday. He's taken a leave of absence from the team. He's got some family issues going on over in Russia, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the situation is at this point, but yeah, hopefully that situation works itself out, because it seems like it could be very dangerous for Panarin and his whole family. So, hopefully things work out in his favor. Like I said, going back to the Devils, they're not doing anything this year. I don't expect them to. Buffalo, everyone wants Buffalo to win. And for whatever reason, they don't want to. I don't get it. It's just frustrating to watch at this point. You got Jeff Skinner, who's, basically finessing $9 million out of you. That's the life I want to live. I want to get paid $9 million a season to go sit in the press box and do nothing. That's honestly the life. That would be awesome. So yeah, good for him, I guess, just finessing money out of the Sabres. As far as the Taylor Hall thing is concerned, I honestly don't, if I'm Kevin Adams right now and I'm looking at this team, I'm saying, you know what's the point? Let's get this guy out of here. There's no sense in keeping him here. We're not a playoff team. We're below the Red Wings, for the love of God. It's not going to happen. It's time to move, try and get some assets for the future, time to, just flip them. You knew that was the point of that whole 1-year deal. They looked at Taylor Hall and said, okay, if we make it to the playoffs with you, hopefully you'll want to reconsider staying. If we crash and burn like most people, like we usually do, all right, then we'll just trade him then. And hopefully we'll get a prospects or some draft picks or whatever. Hopefully we'll figure that out. But, yep, that's basically all I have to say for the East. It's going to be a hot contest between the 5 teams there, and the other 3 are just absolute mess would be the best way to put it.
Definitely can't agree with you more there on that one. You definitely, like you said, have the top 5 teams, and the other 3, they're in no contention to even put up a fight with any of their teams. So best way to put it there, Scotty. I like it. All right, and moving on to our last division is the Honda West Division, one of my favorites since my Colorado Avalanche are part of it. But Nolan Beislein, you'll have the floor here. Let's run through them real quick before I give it to you. Vegas up there at number 1. I know behind the Capitals, Nolan is a solid Vegas fan. St. Louis Blues in 2nd, the Colorado Avalanche in 3rd. Making a huge jump into the fourth spot is the LA Kings. Shocker. Arizona in 5th, Minnesota 6th, San Jose in 7th, and all the way down to the 8th is the Mighty Ducks, or should I say the Anaheim Ducks. Let's move ahead. Nolan, give us your rundown here of the Honda West Division.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this West, Vegas, St. Louis up there at the top, Colorado right there behind them, as we saw Colorado and Vegas take place there at that Lake Tahoe game. That was the game that got delayed into late night here on the East Coast. But, like we said earlier, what a venue that they had to be able to play in. And Colorado, came out with that victory. But then, last night, once again, Vegas, Marc-Andre Fleury, the Penguins' former man, we'll just say, for some people, comes out with the shutout against Colorado. So the rebound right back. But the big talk right now is the LA Kings coming in that 4th spot right now at 19 points. And, I thought this man fell off the side of the earth. You really never heard of him. But Dustin Brown, back at it again with 10 goals in the top 10 of goal scoring this year. I believe he's at 10 goals, 6 assists, so 16 points. Anze Kopitar, 21 points. So, the Kings really making a push right now. And, the way they're going, they could easily be up into that 3 or 2 spot if they keep going the way. Arizona and Minnesota, usually this is Johnny's teams, but, Arizona just kind of falling off a little bit, and Minnesota, still sticking around. I still think they could be that underdog team. And then down low, San Jose and the Ducks. Last night we saw Trevor Zegras make his NHL debut, which is kind of interesting, only 13 minutes on the ice, but, good to see that, maybe the Ducks are going to start rolling him more into the lineup here for the future. But, like I said, see if the Kings can keep on pushing through. Knights, I still think, are the favorites to win this division.
Absolutely. I like the outlook on that. Let's jump back to gallery view here and get everybody back involved. So that goes through our entire outlook of the divisions in and out of that. So let's go ahead and move ahead to our next topic, which I mentioned last week. We talked about it. We're bringing back the pick'ems as we did last season. If you follow the show, where you go through, we pick out 8 games, give them to everybody ahead of time. They go ahead, run through them, give me their picks. We make the graphics, and we keep track of who has the most wins by the end of the show season, and they get a little award. I remember we did the Fantasy Football Freak Show in the studio. Doug ended up with a little trophy. I remember Steve. I remember he probably, I don't know if you still have that or not, but
it's in my basement.
Is it?
It's in my basement. Yes.
Yeah, you end up with a little trophy. So of course the winner will get a little prize again, whether it's a trophy, a gift card, or whatnot. But obviously the scoreboard, the graphic will go in right here. You'll see it. Everybody at zeros right now because we're just starting them. So we have 8 games coming up in a 2-week span. So starting tomorrow, running through March 8th, will be 8 games chosen throughout that time frame. There'll be a show following that March 8th time. So everybody at 000 right now, and that'll all change by the time you see next show, and everything will be all jumbled up, and everybody will move around, I'm sure. 9 of us taking place in the pick'ems this time, including our paw of approval you saw last time. We have a puppy making picks, just like we've seen some other shows do. Puppies replacing our penalty box panda. So we are going to see how that turns out. But let's jump ahead. Graphic for our game one. Let's take a look at who made picks where. And it is the 224 game will be our first game. So tomorrow night, the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. This one was kind of a split panel, and we'll talk about it a little bit here as soon as I go through it. Doug, Johnny, myself, and our graphics producer, Ash, all taking Carolina. Everybody else on the side with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Any comments anybody wants to make about this game?
Wait, so it's a split panel?
Pretty much. I mean, we're looking at 5 picks for the Lightning, 4 picks for the Hurricanes. So pretty split.
Yeah, I took Carolina in that game. I just really like their team this year. I think that they're going in the right direction. You know, goaltending's good. That goalie Alex Nedeljkovic, who's been in their system for a while now, he's finally coming up and he's winning some games for them. And the big thing for them that is really flying under the radar is the resurgence of Jordan Staal. Buddy has been unreal this year. He's around a point per game average right now, and that's good to see. You know, I feel like for most of that contract that he's received in Carolina, he hasn't been healthy and he hasn't really been producing. So it's good to see him actually doing something, because he's one of those guys that the Pens got rid of early that I still like miss and think about a lot. So.
All right. I like it. Any other comments on game one, or are we going to move to game two? All good. All right. Game two. Moving ahead, taking a look at this one. It is the game on, there's 2 games actually on this date for Thursday, the 25th. And the first one we're looking at is the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Washington Capitals. This one, not so split. Take a look at the graphic right now. Everyone picking the Pittsburgh Penguins except for Nolan and myself. So I'm gonna throw this one real quick to you, Nolan. Give us your reason why you went with, I mean, obviously you're biased, but give us a little reason why you went with the Capitals over the Pens.
Right. I mean, maybe a little biased. You know, I appreciate you coming on my side and not staying on this side, on their side. But yeah, I think the Caps just kind of, you know, had their little stretch there where, you know, they were trying to get their act together, maybe got a little too cocky and whatnot, you know, winning all those games and not losing any regulation. But I think now, you know, you're getting Samsonov back as well, mainly their number 1 goaltender. But, you know, Vitek Vanacek, who was supposed to be, you know, probably the 3rd goalie on the taxi squad, came up, started playing all those games, and, you know, won Rookie of the Month there last month, and, you know, kind of showed what he was all about. So, you know, I think the Caps have, you know, decent goaltending right now, a couple, you know, line changes here and there. And yeah, I just think it's going to be a good game for, you know, no matter who wins that game. But, you know, I got to pick the Caps, of course.
Yeah, just with some of the struggles that I saw from the Penguins they've had so far. I mean, I know they're kind of stepping up now, but the struggles that they've had, I really don't have the full faith in them yet, and that's why I had to take Washington over the Pens. So we'll see what happens. I will side with you though on that one, Nolan.
Yeah, I mean, just one last thing. Every time I think we've seen the Caps and the Penguins, it seems as though it's always a shootout of a game. You know, both teams score 4 or 5 goals a game, so, you know, it could easily go either way.
Absolutely. All right, game 3, also on the night of Thursday, 2:25. We had 2 for that night. Usually I don't do that, but there are some really good games Thursday evening. And as you know, some of them are repeats, being that everybody's playing multiple games against the same team. So I don't try to do as the repeat games. So the next one here is one that actually Doug mentioned to me that has to be in a pick'ems, and it's Boston versus the Islanders. This game had to be in there. So this one, not really as split as well. Only 3 people picking the Islanders. Peyton, you took the Islanders, as well as Gary and our puppy. They took everybody else took Boston Bruins. Peyton, I know you're a little biased as well, but why picking the Islanders over the Bruins in this one?
I don't know. I mean, I know Boston's hot right now. But I think that the Isles, like what they've built there, and I've always come back to this, you know, it's always what they built there, and it's that culture that they've built. I think they got it over Boston. You know, Justin Bailey, he's starting to produce a little bit more now. Anders Lee is he's been on fire recently. You know, I'm just looking at this, you know, Noah Dobson has been an absolute anchor on the on the back end for the Islanders. So, whenever you got those players on top of their game, I think that they can hold off the sharpshooters of Boston.
Okay. I like the way it sounds. I like it. All right. Moving ahead. Pick'em game number 4. And this one's deciding not to load for me, but, Okay, here we go. This one, pretty much everybody picked the same team, but it's on 2/27, so on Saturday. Dallas versus Tampa Bay. Do I even have to say who the only person is that picked Dallas?
I was
think
going to
so.
say we don't have
Is it
we
pretty
don't have
obvious?
anybody here to give a sermon on the stars. So
Yeah, everyone picked Tampa except for Johnny, who's riding with his Dallas Stars. So I mean, does anyone see any chance for Dallas to beat Tampa here?
Absolutely not. No,
Why is that, Scotty?
they suck. I mean,
Let's be honest.
they've lost, what is it, 5 or 6 in a row now?
Yeah.
I think it's karma for creating those Monster Energy jerseys that they have. Those things look, I'm not rocking with those at all whatsoever. I think they could have done so much more. But no, I mean, I had that feeling about Dallas heading into the season too. Like I looked at the team and I just thought, you know what, this may have just been one of those Cinderella runs that just don't happen. They might have. It gave me serious 2012 New Jersey Devils vibes. Like they just don't seem like they would make that type of run again. It was like, hey, everything came together at the right moment. We got the right bounces. The right guys stepped up when they needed to. I just didn't see them being able to replicate that same output that they gave the previous season and during the postseason in the bubble there. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Tampa in the Stanley Cup rematch.
Awesome. All right, moving ahead to the next matchup. This will be Game 5. Game 5. Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh on March 2nd. And this one was pretty solid as well. Everybody pretty consistent except for 2 of us. Scotty, you and I picking the Philadelphia Flyers over the Pens. Again, I'm not on the side to trust the Penguins yet. I'm not even to give them that push to say, okay, you're going to beat one of those top teams. Didn't pick them against the Capitals. Didn't pick them against the Flyers. Obviously, Scotty, you and I see the same thing. So what are you seeing with the Flyers?
Pretty much what I saw in the first 2 games of the season whenever they played against Philly. I feel like, Philly just has the firepower. They have those weapons. They have the Travis Konechny's. They have Kevin Hayes. They have Sean Couturier. They have Jacob Voracek, Claude Giroux. They have all those guys. Now, granted, I understand that it was the first 2 games of the year. And obviously, the Penguins are going to, they were, I think, shaky would be the nice way of putting it. But as far as that's concerned, I think Philly can, do it again pretty much. Carter Hart's an absolute wall. He is. I like him. I think he has a shot at taking down Pittsburgh. I don't know to what extent. Maybe this game will be closer. Obviously, I hope it isn't the blowout games that the first 2 were. But yeah, I think I'm rocking with Philly on this one. I don't know if Pittsburgh's gonna have what it takes. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Absolutely. Moving ahead, Game 6. This is our Canadian game of the pick'ems this week. Toronto versus Edmonton in Game 6, the March 3rd game. And every human body has picked the Toronto Maple Leafs except for our puppy who decided to be a rebel and pick the Oilers. So I obviously can't make the puppy describe why she picked the Oilers. So we're all going to just talk about Toronto. So whoever wants to go on a Toronto rant, go for it.
Doug, that's on you. That's
I
on
know
you,
it is.
Doug.
I know it is.
Go Bucks, Dougie, get on it.
All right, I feel like I covered it already. They've been incredible this year. They got Marner going. They got Matthews going. Joe Thornton's a top line winger, for God's sake. I mean, everything's happening there, and their defense is really solid. They were able to form a shutdown, like, championship winning defense pairing in like the weirdest way possible, just by putting Jake Muzzin and Justin Hull together. So they've been incredible, and I really like this team, man. I think this might be the year, and if that were to happen, I don't know how that's going to go down in my life, because my God, I'd lose it. It would be great.
All right. moving ahead.
Piggybacking off what Doug
Yeah.
said, piggybacking
was
off what Doug said, I'm in full agreement with you, Doug. I feel like right now, if there was a favorite to win the Stanley Cup, it would be the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, this team is absolutely disgusting. We've talked about how Matthews is scoring at an ungodly rate right now. It's amazing the numbers he's putting up. As far as this specific matchup against Edmonton, the thing that it's always come down to with me is the depth scoring or lack thereof in Edmonton's case. I just don't think they have it. After you got the McDavid, after you have McDavid and Draisaitl, and maybe Darnell Nurse chips in, but what do you have after that really? I don't think you can rely on James Neal to pick up the load like he used to. That's just not going to happen. I feel like Toronto has those guys. They have as you mentioned before, Dougie, they got multiple guys that they can fall back onto. So that's why I'm going with Toronto in this one.
All right, sounds good. Game 7, moving ahead on March 7th. So Game 7 on the 7th. How about that?
That's my birthday.
Is it? Happy birthday!
Yeah.
Happy early birthday, Peyton. You're gonna watch Florida. You're gonna watch Florida take on Carolina that night. Just so you know, you're gonna be our statistician for that game. All right, everybody taking the Florida Panthers except for the lone Timberwolf, Mr. Jonathan Sakaguchi. He's taking Carolina. So I don't even know. I mean, I'm a Florida fan. I like Carolina as well, but I don't know who wants to make the case. Who wants to make a case for Florida on this one?
Patrick Hornquist is elite. That's the case.
So who would have thought we'd be saying that? Like,
hey,
Verhaeghe is a first line winger.
Tip your hat to the guy. Honestly, when you look at what he's done since he's gone down to Florida, it basically rejuvenated his career. I mean, he's making the Penguins look stupid now for trading him for Matheson and Sevier. Sevier's a healthy scratch most nights now, and Matheson, he's starting to get his legs underneath him, but unfortunately, he knows what to do on the offensive side of the puck. As far as defense is concerned, the guy's doggy paddling the deep end pretty much. So, I mean, look, I'll give credit where credit is due. Patrick Hornquist is doing what he has to do, and luckily, the rest of the team is also. So, we spend most of our time as hockey fans, pointing and laughing at Florida, and now they're the ones that are doing it to hockey fans pretty much. So I'm here for it. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, now it's my time to say it. Mike Matheson is actually a forward who just so happens to play defense.
Yeah, that's a solid statement. And then our last one is Game 8. This one takes it over to the West. And here it is on March 8th, the final of the 2-week span of games, Colorado versus Arizona. Everybody taking the Avs except for, again, Johnny and our producer, Mr. Gary Smith. So making a little run here. I sound too biased when I talk about the Avs. So everyone else wants to add in about the Avs, go ahead, because I just think they're awesome no matter what. I think they have one of the best teams in the league, and Devon Taves looks great in that uniform as well as playing with that team. He fits fantastic in their lineup. But who else wants to add in, because that was really biased, like I said.
I feel like there's not really too much to add, because it's like Arizona is just not it anymore. Like, they're just not that good. I mean, they're good in the sense their record's 8-7-3, but it's like they're slow. They're on that slow decline. It's actually it's going to be a very steep decline if they don't turn things around. And when you're playing Colorado, come on, is that even a match? Come on. Do I have to mention who's on the roster of the Colorado Avalanche? I don't have to. So I just, it might be a game, but I seriously doubt it.
I mean, let's look back at the playoffs last season when Colorado was playing Arizona and how much of a butt whooping they got in most of those games, 7-1, 8-1. I mean,
and Arizona was a better team last year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The only person they have stepping up right now is Connor Garland. Clayton Keller's not even performing.
Yeah, and that's what's sad too.
I went into the fact that I dropped him from my fantasy team because he's complete crap right now.
I have a soft spot for Clayton Keller, and
he's not playing.
It's disappointing.
You're telling me Phil the Thrill, the hamburger, or the hot dog, whatever they called him, isn't performing?
Phil Kessel? I mean, he is, but not. Connor Garland's the one at the top of it, and we all know that.
Phil's got 12 and 18 right now. So I mean, take that for what it's worth.
Could be worse.
Yeah, the next guy after him is former Penguins legend Derek Brassard, who has 7 points in 18 games. So
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
I didn't even know he played for Arizona at this point.
I didn't know either.
And nobody cared.
What'd you say, Scotty?
I said they signed him at the tail end of free agency, and nobody cared. It just was like, oh yeah.
I didn't even hear about it. So
exactly, that's how big of a deal it was. Nobody cared.
So as everyone knows, coming into by the time the next show comes around, which will be following March 8th, that'll be, or even on March 8th. Well, no, because the game's on March 8th. But following March 8th, we'll have another show, and then that will have the outlook of the new scoreboard with all the updated scores, and the standings will be moved around on who's in first, who's in last, and whatnot. So stay tuned to check that out next week, as we'll have 8 games played on the standings. But let's in 2 weeks, I should say. Well, let's go ahead and finish out with the show, which we always do. Talk about the hometown team. And right after we talk about that a little bit, we have a special video sent in from Johnny since he couldn't be with us today. So we'll play that after we talk about it a little bit, and then we'll close it out. So let's go in and talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins a little bit. Any trade rumors you want to talk about, anything like that, let's go into that right now, since they are the hometown team for everybody around the Pittsburgh area.
All right. So the Nashville Predators announced the other day they're going to start making trades, and they're going to start selling off assets at the trade deadline. And the Penguins need depth scorers. Eric Howell would be nice. Get him to be a third line center. You know, my big dream would be to get Victor Arvidsson somehow, but that's not going to happen.
That'd be wonderful.
It would be insane, but that's not going to happen. But like, if you get Howell, you know, and put him with McCann, I could live with your third line being McCann, Howell, and Evan Rodriguez when it's fully healthy. Or you just do what I want them to do: run 11 forwards and 7D. You know, get McCann, play McCann, and whoever you get to play center, and just double shift guys in random places throughout the game, and then just play your main 7D. You know, because that seventh defenseman, I thoroughly believe, has a better chance to have a positive impact on the game than any of the guys they've thrown out on the fourth line this year. Like, you're telling me that, you know, Mike Matheson or P.O. Joseph couldn't have a better impact on the game than, you know, Sam Lafferty, Colton Sevier, Drew O'Connor, guys of that nature. I mean, they're literally running a fourth line right now that consists of guys who aren't even NHL players. You know, something needs to change. I know that Ron Hextall and Brian Burke just got here, but like, the blueprint's there. You have an incredible defense, and if the defense performs, you're going to get the goaltending. You got to figure out the depth scoring. You know, the way this team's assembled right now isn't really, you know, for a lack of a better term, it isn't good for where, you know, Malkin is at in his career. You know, you're putting too much pressure on your big guys to score because you have nobody else that can do it. You know, and that's the issue is if you get somebody to run with Jared McCann, the depth scoring is going to come, and you're going to probably end up getting better results almost immediately if you're able to acquire some sort of a depth scoring help by the trade deadline.
Building off that, Dougie, I just want to, you know, we might as well go back and forth about it. I mean, do you think the Penguins are just one depth scoring piece away from, you know, having a shot at contending for a title again, or is it just what do you think about it?
I think they are if they get a center, I think they can definitely win like 1 or 2 playoff rounds. But if they get a center and like a winger, like, you know, maybe like a Kyle Palmieri or a Jake Virtanen type of winger that can go up into the top 6 and bump Kasperi Kapanen down, they're a championship contender. Like, I think they could make the Eastern Conference Final in their sleep if that scenario goes down.
So if you were to make that type of deal for like a Palmieri or whoever, who are you willing to sacrifice then?
All right. So this is what I'm thinking. if we're getting Palmieri, sacrifice one of the defensemen. And with Palmieri only having 1 year left on his deal, you try and get Pavel Zacha as well. And if you have to add a pick or a prospect to make that happen, I'd do it. But I think the most feasible option would be probably trading Juuso Riikola and a third-round pick to Vancouver for Jake Virtanen. You know, get him, use him as like a third line, second line type of player, and then let whoever you want to go play with McCann, you know. And I don't think it should be off the table either that Jared McCann goes back and play center. Because, you know, rather than giving up assets for a center, why not just have him go there and have, you know, Evan Rodriguez just play left wing, or give Drew O'Connor an extended look. I think that Drew O'Connor could be a very productive player if put alongside competent line mates, you know. I think that that's something that they could look into. And, you know, if you're trading a defenseman right now, like, this is the question, because obviously they're not going to be able to get rid of Mike Matheson just due to the contract. Which one are you trading? Are you trading Brian Dumoulin or Marcus Pettersson?
Probably Pettersson.
I say Dumoulin, but that's me.
I would say Patterson.
I'd say trade the whole dang team.
Shut up, Nolan.
Yeah, I lean more towards Pettersson as well. I mean, it's tough because of the age factor, but like, I think that Dumoulin's too much of a core piece of the roster. You know, like, a lot of people talk about how Jake Gensel is the guy that Sidney Crosby was meant to be playing with his entire career. I believe the same goes for Brian Dumoulin and Chris Letang. You know, they're perfect for each other. I mean, the amount of random guys that we've wasted alongside Letang over the past like 15 years is ridiculous. So, like, why not ride with Dumoulin until Letang starts to slow down, and then you figure it out that, you know, because I'll be honest with you guys, P.O. Joseph up there ain't it. Love the guy. There's been times where he's looked brilliant, but I think we need to keep in mind that he's 21 years old and he's playing top pairing minutes out of necessity. You know, I think that he'd be better suited to go down and play with Cece, get, you know, more favorable matchups and allow himself to basically work at his own pace and get his feet wet.
I mean, what I'm looking at right now, obviously, I think we were all shocked by the fact that, you know, Jim Rutherford, you know, resigned a while back. I don't know if you guys discussed that in the show that I missed a week or two ago, but I mean, as far as the Hextall and Burke thing, I don't know if they say that their intention is to win now. I really don't know if that's possible with this team. I just don't. And I don't think that they're, you know, one trade away from getting a depth piece, or one depth piece trade away from making that happen. I really don't. And that poses the question to you, you know, do you consider, you know, shopping around a Chris Letang and Evgeny Malkin? You know, do you consider that option? Because to me, I look at this team right now and think, okay, even if they do get like you said, Dougie, an Eric Halla or Kyle Palmieri or a Jake Virtanen, it's not going to be enough to push that team over the top. I just don't see it. I'm not buying into it. As far as the goaltending is concerned, like I said earlier, Jari is, you know, looking better per se, but again, you know, we've watched hockey long enough to know that regular season hockey and playoff hockey are two completely different animals. And Tristan Jari's experience consists of one game. He has one playoff game under his belt. I'm not really, you know, feeling 100% confident on him either. And yeah, like right now, I don't know if the Penguins should, you know, try and, you know, make another push for it, because I just don't see the team doing anything with it.
I feel like they can still compete in the playoffs as long as they have like that, like the Crosby, Malkin, Letang core. I think they still can do it. It's just a matter of them actually, if they actually go to the cup. I don't know if they'll win the cup, but I do still think that they have a legitimate chance to go to like at least the second or third round. Just because, I mean, I say like you got Crosby, Malkin, Letang, like they're still very solid player. Like Letang's not even bad, and I don't know. It's just I think that he could still be of service. Now Jari, I don't know if I'm going to speak on Jari just because I don't want to jinx him because he's actually been playing pretty good hockey recently, but I wouldn't be opposed to maybe shopping Jari around because we need someone if the defense does somehow fall, we need someone that's going to be back there and it's going to be solid. So
I'm gonna jump in, like if you said about the Crosby, Malkin, Letang trio there. I know last season, or I don't know if we even said it in the show, but I remember that Scotty and I went to lunch and he brought it up to me. So I'll throw this out as well. Is that really the trio that you still want to ride with? Is that trio the one that's gonna take you to playoffs anymore, or do you need to break that up? Do you need to pair other people with them to make it work? Do you need to split it up a little bit? I mean, you've been doing this for how long with that trio? Yeah, it worked before, but is it going to work now? That's the question.
And
I
that's
think
what I was
regardless.
saying earlier about that whenever TK and I had that conversation. Sidney Crosby's game is going to stay relatively consistent to what it is right now because of the way he trains and the way he plays the game. You know, Sidney Crosby is not the type of, when I look at Evgeny Malkin, he goes full speed all the time. There is no, that is Evgeny Malkin's game. And eventually that is going to catch up to you. It already has. Look at how he's played so far this season. It's starting to catch up to him. Whereas opposed to Sid, Sid's more cerebral. He knows where everybody's at. He can, flick it off if he needs to. Evgeny Malkin's approach is, I'm going to skate right into these two defensemen. I'm going to go through them. And it's not going to work. And I think that with that being said, you have Malkin Letang who in 2 years are up for free agency. So if I'm looking at this team right now and I say, okay, we don't really have a shot at winning right now. Let's try and get something for these guys while their value is still somewhat there. Like you have to admit, someone is going to pull the trigger on a trade for Evgeny Malkin, or someone is going to pull the trigger on a trade for a Chris Letang, no matter how bad they think he's digressed. He's a proven winner. His name's on the cup 3 times. Someone's going to take a shot at him. And the issue with that is would the Penguins actually let them do it? I stressed it before, about why part of the reason why Rutherford left allegedly was because of, he was trying to do a trade with Letang and, ownership stepped in and said, no, you're not doing that. The thing about Mario and, Mario Lemieux, say what you will about him, he's a great owner, but he's all about the legacies. He's all about guys finishing their careers in Pittsburgh. At the end of the day, if a major player is going to get moved, Mario's going to have the last say in it. Sid will obviously have a say in it too, but Mario will have the final say as to whether or not something like that goes down. Mario's all about guys finishing his career in Pittsburgh. That's why guys like Tom Barrasso stuck around in Pittsburgh as long as he did, even though he wasn't nearly as good as he was. Mario called the shots on that type of stuff. So do I think the Penguins should consider that option? Yes. Do I think they will actually go through with it? No.
Just one thing quick made me laugh because you said about Malkin breaking through. As Ovi does the same, Russian machines never break. Little thing that the Caps have. But also, I would just add on, and this is the same way for the Capitals too. I mean, you got Ovi, older, coming up on his last year. Backstrom, a little bit older. Both of these teams are both at times where, they had their times to win. They can still win, but it's one of those things where dynasties always come to an end at some point. And for the Penguins, not saying it's over, but it's kind of at that point where there's going to be some sacrificial moves, I think, for them to be able to stay a winning team and have a chance, for that late push in the cup each year. So I got as a non-Penguins fan.
I like it.
Yeah, and I think the thing he's like, especially like last year around this time, I feel like he did everything in his power to keep complementary pieces. You know, Jason Zucker was a big trade. I mean, he's been doing okay, but like it's not worked out to that thus far, you know. Really good top six on paper. You have a decent third line, and then everything else is just, I mean, it's okay, but like if you're not going to be able to have depth scoring, I mean, we know this. Like if you don't have depth scoring, you're not going to make it far. You're going to lose in the first round, or even worse, you might not even. He still has that in him with the way this.
Here's what I'll leave with this, and this is just the I think this is the ultimatum that needs to be set for the Penguins. If you make the playoffs this year, then clearly your team is still capable of, making a push. So go for it then. But if you guys miss, what point do you have at keeping a Malkin or Letang? Because clearly you've already shown that your team is not playoff caliber. I don't care if the divisions have been redone. If you think, I don't care about any of that. If you think that your team is a contender, then they should be making the playoffs no matter what.
The only different team that played any factor in adding them to the West was adding them to the East was Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the only team that changed out of the whole entire Metropolitan they were in before, other than Buffalo, but Buffalo is not a contender against the Pens.
Buffalo's irrelevant.
Exactly.
Buffalo.
So the only one that makes a difference is Boston. So you're basically just playing against the second Washington Capitals in your division.
Yeah, and you swapped them for Carolina,
Yeah.
And even then, I feel like you're in the same scenario because
Exactly.
Carolina's been playing so well.
Mm-hmm. They're basically swapped them for Boston. So
I don't know, guys. I feel like we're getting into like Michael Jordan Last Dance type of stuff here with them. Like I'm scared. Starting to get nervous.
Well, before we go into our last closing comments, we have a short video from Johnny since he sent it in and couldn't be here today. So let's watch that now.
Hey guys, sorry I couldn't join you for the show today. Due to work reasons, but got the Coyotes Reverse Retro on right now. And gonna give you a quick rundown on some stuff I've heard around the league and a couple of things I want to say. First off, the Pittsburgh Penguins are starting to play a lot better hockey. Matheson and seems to be starting to find his game now after a slow start to the season, and pretty much being a fourth winger for the Penguins. I'm just going to come out and say that already. They're getting hot at the right time, I do believe, and we're getting to see what we usually call the Penguins March of the Penguins, and I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about what Pittsburgh does in the month of March, and usually just goes on a rip roar where they can't seem to be beaten. And I know we're going to be coming up on the trade deadline, and before long, I was looking at something. There was an article I read last night. It says there's 3 different targets that the Penguins to look at with the Nashville Predators. Now, I don't know how we would be able to come to acquire some of these guys without either giving up a first-round pick, giving up a first-round pick, some of the big-name prospects or some of the guys on the current roster. A couple of the names that I saw, one was Philip Forsberg, who's right now on pace for a 30-goal season, but is an RFA at the end of the season and as well. Along with the Penguins also having the look at the backup goaltender, I think it was Yanusa. Oh, I might be pronouncing that name wrong. You guys can correct me on that later. And there was another player, it was a defenseman, and to be a 7th defenseman for the Penguins, which I don't think they really need right now because of how the defensive core is playing for the Penguins. Going around the league, once again, Toronto, and Edmonton. What can we say about them? Montreal still staying up there with them as well. Oh, a lot of the standings have changed in recent days. And I don't have the standings pulled up here in front of me. But I do believe we're going to see some very entertaining hockey here within the next few weeks. We're going to start seeing players move. Might see a couple names being taken off the waiver wire as well. Oh, I'm not 100% sure who's on the list right now. Again, I don't have it pulled up in front of me. But I do believe we're going to see, like I said, we're going to see some really entertaining hockey here soon, guys. Tonight we got the Penguins with the Capitals. Always a good, fun matchup. And I expect the Penguins to come out on top. So, guys, till next time, I'll see you then.
All right, and thank you there from Johnny for his video. Some good points there about the Pens. Thank you for sending that in. Sorry you couldn't be here with us today. But after that, that pretty much sums it up for the show. Any last comments anybody would like to make before we close it out?
I just wanted to say one last thing about the Pens. I'm so sorry. I feel like the Pens are they're going to start getting into a Detroit Red Wings type of mindset where you just got to keep the streak going, like the playoff streak going. That's what I mean. And it's going to kill. And because that's what killed the Red Wings. They were trying to keep the streak going, and they just got a bunch of old guys, and then they couldn't compete. So I really hope that doesn't happen with the Penguins, but it's starting to look like it, and it's gonna be bad. But yeah, that was the last thing. I'm sorry.
You're perfectly fine, man. Perfectly fine. Well, as everyone knows, as I said earlier, the Pick'ems are returning. We showed you those 8 games we have picked out. So when you tune in 2 weeks' time, you'll see who's in first place out of their picks for the last 8 games. There could be a tie. There could be some big changes. Who knows? Everybody's sitting right there at the starting point of 0. So we'll see who is our leader come 2 weeks' time following March 8th and the final game there. But for now, that'll be Forechecking on CTV and CTV Sports 1. For anyone who's interested in more CTV content, we will be live for the first time in a while this Friday with Cal U Baseball. So if you'd like to tune in, CTV Sports 1 on YouTube. I believe the game is at 1 o'clock, Nolan? 1 o'clock? 1 o'clock on Friday.
1:00.
Yeah, so make sure to tune in. There's also a game on Saturday. We're playing Wheeling. So be sure to tune in if you want to see some live sports coverage from CTV Sports 1. We're back in action. Even with COVID, they've put us out for a while, but we're back and we're ready to go. But for more forechecking, 2 weeks time, return right here to CTV and CTV Sports 1 for that next show and to see those standings. As far as myself, TK, Nolan, Doug, Peyton, and Scotty, and Johnny out there in Washington, wherever he is. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time right here on CTV and CTV Sports 1. Have a great day.